Alabama getting closer to the start of camp, and we've got a quarterback competition, and I think it is wide open. We're going to talk about Kalen DeBoer's comments to 247 Sports and what that reveals to us as far as the three-man race to be the next Bama QB. Guys, we're brought to you by mybookie.ag. Use that promo code next round to double your initial deposit. Let's get this thing going. All right, with Clint Lamb, I'm Mick Gillispie. Here we are, Clint. We got a TV show with Alabama on it. We got a lot of stories going out right now, trying to stoke up the interest in football.
Are you getting excited, Mick? I mean, I feel like we're only a couple of weeks away. Really, you know what? Let me go look at the date now. I guess, yeah, we're less than 2 weeks away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely less than 2 weeks, but what, 10 days or so, 10 or 11 days away. And so I'm getting excited because this quarterback battle, I think it's just now starting the conversations are starting to heat up. We've been having these discussions ever since really the end of the season, but especially once Jalen Milroe announced that he was entering the NFL draft. Mm-hmm. Everybody said, okay, what's next for Alabama? And you start turning the page a little bit. 3 interesting competitors in the quarterback battle. And I thought, you know, Kalen DeBoer gave an exclusive interview to Alex Scarbrough and Bama247. I cannot recommend that enough. Going to check that out. A lot of information. We're going to be touching on a little bit, but we're, you know, it's behind the paywall. We're not trying to, you know, take anybody's information as far as, you know, giving you no reason to go over there and check it out for yourself. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of stuff, but it was just, there's a couple of points that maybe as we're trying to piece together this quarterback battle and how it might look, I thought was interesting that it kind of brought up as far as that room.
Mm-hmm. Well, they did a nice job, and you mentioned it. So you guys may want to go check that out at Bama247. But let's get into Kalen DeBoer and what we're looking at for this quarterback battle. Now, you got Ty Simpson, who's been the backup. You got Austin Mack, who came with these guys from Washington, hard worker. And then you have the top recruit of all time and a quarterback out of Texas, Duncanville, Texas, Keelon Russell, who will be there as well.
I think, you know, it's been the stereotypical comments from DeBoer. Like, you know, he brought up the level of football that Ty Simpson has seen. He brought up the hardworking element that Austin Mack brings to the table. He brought up just the pure skill set and the confidence in which Keelon Russell plays. And you know, there was a lot more detail than all that, but you know, those were some of the highlights as far as talking about all 3 of those guys. None of that is surprising. He wasn't overly concerned, didn't seem overly concerned about Keelon Russell's weight, because, you know, he's like, that's kind of what the offseason's for. That's what we're going to be doing. So he's, you know, listed at 175 right now. I would fully expect him to be a lot bigger. And I say a lot bigger. It might be 180, might be 185, maybe 190. But, you know, probably 185, I think, would be a nice little boost as far as his frame and everything going into fall camp. But I would expect him to be bigger come fall camp. But there was a couple of things that stood out to me. There was actually a lot more than 2, but 2 that I at least wanted to point out because, you know, it's the conversations that we've had, but just hearing it from DeBoer, I thought it was interesting. He did bring up the fact that all 3 guys who were in the quarterback competition now are passing first quarterbacks and guys that can athletically extend plays. And that's a perfect way to describe it. Jalen Milroe, he brought a ton of athleticism. He was a run first quarterback who had, you know, some complementary passing skills that sometimes you could take advantage of. But the rest of these guys, like, they want to win from the pocket. They want to be kind of, you know, Jalen wanted to be pass first as well. It's just when you're as gifted as he is for, you know, as far as size and speed and rushing ability, you're not going to take that out of the arsenal too much. But with these other guys, like, they have the ability to extend plays and be mobile and create with their legs a little bit, but they're going to be passing first guys. That was one of the things that stood out to me about this what Kalen DeBoer said about this quarterback battle.
Pretty fun. I mean, Ty Simpson certainly has put the time in. But I just got this feeling, with Ryan Grubb and the familiarity with Austin Mack, that if he comes in and plays like a solid, I mean, if he outplays Ty Simpson, I feel like they would give him the job. I feel like last year, I think a lot of you guys felt like it was Jalen Milroe's job no matter what. Like, and at the end of the season, as bad as he was still going to be the starting quarterback.
What I want to point out to people is through this, the more I've heard Kalen DeBoer talk about the quarterback battle this offseason, my thought process as far as Keelon Russell having a very legitimate chance. He will be given opportunities. That's not surprising necessarily, but it's like when Kalen DeBoer's asked about it, he talks about the ups and downs of first year players. You need to be kind of have a steadiness to you that you bring to the table every single day. All of that's really important. But it's like he fully expects Keelon to be able to handle that. And it doesn't seem like he's not talking in a way like, well, he's got to prove this or he's got to do this. He's got to show us that he's ready. And I'm sure there's elements of that, but just the way he talks about it, I think that if Keelon does have to pull his own weight and do some of these things, but I think Kalen DeBoer and company all fully believe in his ability to do that, and that makes him a legitimate threat in this competition. Austin Mack, obviously having the respect of the locker room, having the respect of the coaching staff. He embraced his role as quarterback 3 last year, or quarterback 4, I guess. Really, was he QB3, QB4 with Dylan Lonergan? Who knows? But embraced not being either the starter or the main backup who was going to be the first one to get opportunities at the, in mop-up situations. He put his head down. He went to work. And, he's earned a lot of people's respect as a result of that. Something else that kind of stood out to me from Kalen DeBoer's comments was, he was asked about naming a quarterback or a starting quarterback prior to the fall. And he acknowledged we pretty much did that with Jalen Milroe. And that can be beneficial because it gives you a direction going into the summer. As far as, who's going to be that guy, building it around them, building it around their talents. And so, that's a very different approach than Nick Saban. Based off of Kalen DeBoer's comments, I wouldn't be shocked if a guy, stepped up and he earned the starting job. It won't be handed to anybody. But if a guy is kind of trending in that direction and it seems like it's going to be that guy, Nick Saban, I mean, sometimes he would never even tell you when a starting quarterback had been named. Kalen DeBoer, he's going to take a much different approach. Nick Saban, he, from a transfer portal perspective, the sooner you name a quarterback, the more opportunities you're going to have for guys to leave. And so there were some times where it felt like Nick Saban was kind of protecting that or trying to prevent that from happening. I don't know that will necessarily be the case under Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to keep an eye out for, you got a super prospect like Keelon Russell. He might not want to sit for 2 or 3 years like Ty Simpson did to get an opportunity, but it takes that sometimes to understand the speed of the game, to win the team over, and all that kind of stuff as well, and especially to win. Although to give the guy credit, he won pretty much every game he played in Duncanville, Texas, 6A football, but this is the SEC, so we'll find out. But yeah, I think I really feel like there's a sense of urgency, and there should be, to win this year. And look, you're stepping in after Nick Saban. It's a tough task, but 9-4 just doesn't cut it at Alabama. And I hate to say that, not making the playoff doesn't cut it at Alabama. Not showing up for games doesn't cut it at Alabama. Guys wearing jewelry and showing up late for workouts. It's not the Alabama way. And it's I think the board did a really good job in a lot of areas, but he's going to have to fix the culture some. And when I think it starts with winning.
Yeah, it does. You got to have the right guy. You can't build it around anybody and win. That's just, there were times where limitations kept, teams under Nick Saban from being able to get over the hump. And it's just, I've said this, I'll continue to say this. I feel like that the fit with Jalen Milroe, they made it work. They both did their absolute best to make it work. And they created a pretty respectable product considering. But DeBoer had to adjust a lot, as far as how his offense operates. And not only was he doing that, he was doing that on top of not having kind of his right-hand man. And this is why I've said, I wouldn't be, I don't want to give Ryan Grubb too much credit. Like, he's going to deserve any credit for the improvement that is made. He will deserve some of the blame if things don't improve. But, I think that just having a guy who fits what you are comfortable with and what you are known for doing and kind of how you built things at Washington that made it so successful, just having that guy as your signal caller, that's going to make a huge difference. And I don't know who that's going to be. I think all three guys have a chance, but whoever it ends up being, I think is going to do a much better job of that than what they had previously. And that's going to make a significant difference on Saturdays.
Now that'll be the number one story going into to camp, and it always is. I mean, who the next quarterback is going to be? That's the way that football.
You think that you think I've wondered, do you think that will be the top storyline, or do you think it will be Grubb and his arrival and what that can mean for because I honestly don't have an answer one way or another. Like, you would feel it's automatically quarterback, but the Grubb situation I feel like is such an element to lean into as far as offseason storylines.
Yeah, no, I think the Grubb's second to the quarterback battle. I mean, he's part of it, but having a new offensive coordinator is a big deal, especially when it's someone that could come in and make a big impact like him. But at the end of the day, it's, who's going to be the quarterback at Alabama. I mean, I could probably go back and name every single starting quarterback since I've followed Alabama, starting with Jay Barker. I mean, you could just name them all, man. I mean, it's such a big position in this state. I don't know if I could do that for Auburn, but I could do that with Alabama. I mean, you go from, the Freddie Kitchens and the Brody Croyles you could just sit there and boom, 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 right on in. And it's because it's the most recognizable position in the state. If you guys, and it's always great to see you guys in the comments section. Keep the comments coming. We appreciate them so much. And use mybookie.ag, promo code next round to double your initial deposit. Support MyBookie because they support us and we appreciate it. It's a great time of year with March Madness coming up. MyBookie.ag, promo code next round. Talking to Jake Coker, who's on Elephant in the Room here. It's like some of his stories, I go to eat. Some guys we might be all right if we can find a quarterback, not even realizing that the quarterback's standing right next to him, right? And the thing he remembers most about winning the national championship is relief. He's holding the trophy and he's crying because he wanted to win so bad not for him, but for everybody else. Because if you lose, then you're the guy that lost the national championship.
See, John Parker Wilson, Blake Sims, Bryce Young, Jalen Milroe. I'm trying to remember starting quarterbacks at Alabama that didn't win a national championship under Nick Saban. Because, the understanding the pressure from Coker's side, two of those that I just mentioned out of the four, they were post-Coker. So, you talk about all these, John Parker Wilson, Blake Sims were really the only two who had been starters under Nick Saban at quarterback and not won a national championship as a starter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of pressure, I'm not saying that Blake Sims is obviously always going to be a popular player with Alabama fans. I mean, he was a starting quarterback. He came in and the work that he did with Kiffin and what Kiffin did with him as far as developing him, he was kind of a fun, exciting player to watch. Bryce Young is obviously, number one overall pick. No other Alabama player has been able to do that in the modern era. Winning a Heisman, the only Heisman winning quarterback in Alabama history, all those things. He's forever going to be a legend, but not winning a national championship when that was so prevalent under all these other quarterbacks. I mean, I can see where there, and it wasn't just like, oh, I don't think he was thinking about it that specifically,
Right.
but I think that there was such an emphasis on winning because that is the standard at Alabama. And when you were given your opportunity to be a starter and everything, I'm sure there was this pressure to like, I mean, I want to be one of those people that was able to help this team that has tons of talent around me get over the hump and get another one for Nick Saban and get another one for this university.
Yeah. I'll tell you another story too. A lot of the players that were on the 09 championship team feel bad that John Parker Wilson didn't get a championship because they like him so much, because he's a popular teammate.
He was a warrior. And
yeah,
I mean, from what I
really, right.
Yeah, I mean, I've always heard that he was there's certain guys have that they carry that type of, Baker Mayfield. He might be cocky, might rub people the wrong way, but I mean, his teammates would describe him as a warrior. I mean, he was good, and Coker was a lot that same way. Like, I mean, just the things that he did. Now, was he considered like a warrior going into that season? I couldn't tell you one way or another, but I think things he did throughout that season, certainly he finished that way in the eyes of his teammates.
Yeah. No, Coker had to fight for the job, and maybe one day we'll get him to tell the story about the behind the scenes stuff. He talked about it in the book that Phil Savage wrote. But that's his story to tell, right? But at the end of the day, when he finally got them to give him the job, and Lane Kiffin, allowed him to be, the quarterback of the team, and kind of got out of the way and just worked with him. He became great, and they would have won. I think, and I've said this before. Look, this isn't because I'll do a show with him. Go back and watch the first 2 or 3 elephants in the room. I talked about it initially because I just felt like it was something I had to talk about. I think they'd have won in 2014 if they would have made him quarterback. But I was saying that on the tailgate show in 2014, and that's not a slight at anyone else, but you knew that he had that kind of ability and talent. But what he did in 2015 is when he got the job finally, he was so physical at the quarterback spot that it kind of electrified that defense. Like he would run over a guy. He told me, like, he looked for guys with low numbers and he'd truck them and then look at the sideline. That's what he did. Look at the sideline. And you got Jonathan Allen over there and Ryan Anderson, all those guys going crazy, right?
Yeah. I mean, and I'll say this. I mean, the quarterback position is considered such a diva position, whether you're a diva or not. I mean, you're the one wearing the black no contact jersey in practice. No one's allowed to touch you. Like, everybody else is over here slamming against each other, and it's hot, and it's, I mean, there's the physicality side of it. Quarterbacks have to deal with the mental side a lot more and things like fall camp and all those things. The physical side of it, really everybody else outside of like kickers and specialists and stuff kind of deal with. So when you go out there and you're willing to take some of those blows, deliver some of those blows at that position, it's like you're not built for that. That is the way that you're treated every day in practice, everything. You're not set up for that kind of success. So the fact that you got the balls to go out there and do it, that's an easy way to earn people's respect as far as the other players in that locker room. You got to be smart about it. But yeah, I mean, I do think that what he did over the course of that season earned a lot of respect from everybody in that building. And he has such a unique perspective on this upcoming quarterback battle because he was a part of really 2 of them, I guess.
Right.
And he lost one.
Right.
And he won one and then lost it temporarily and then won it back. So, like, you talk about being on both sides, the winner and the loser of some of this stuff. And it's like, he's been a part of that for sure. And so he brings a perspective that not many people, really do.
Mm-hmm. Plus at Florida State, right? I mean, they signed Jameis Winston and put him right ahead of Jake.
Yep.
And it would have been Jake's job, So, I mean, he's been through this before. And he does give you a unique perspective. And, his perspective is that it's going to be tough to beat Ty Simpson just because the guy's been through all the meetings. He's probably got the team behind him. I mean, they've seen him in practice every day. But that can change in a hurry. I mean, look, if Keelon Russell goes out and looks like Jameis Winston, he could take the job. I mean, I know there's maybe a 5% chance, but he's a higher rated player.
The bottom line is Keelon Russell can do certain things that Ty Simpson, not that he's not capable, but in some ways not capable of doing.
Right.
That's just the bottom line. And that's not a knock on Ty Simpson at all, because Ty Simpson, I mean, he's got a lot of those traits himself, and he brings his own sparks and his own kind of flair to it. But if Keelon comes in and everybody talks about like being able to handle the mental aspect of it, that is certainly a big part of it. Learning the playbook, getting, the chemistry with your receivers, doing all those things, earning the respect of the locker room is by far the number one thing that you have to do as the quarterback. I think Tyler Buchner, his biggest downfall coming to Alabama is he was a little bit of a different bird compared to everybody else. I don't know that he ever like fully earned the respect of the locker room.
Right.
And I think that ultimately, like I almost feel like that if they would have turned to Ty Simpson in that USF game and not Tyler Buchner, you might have not had the rumors of the not rebelling, but people not being happy, with the change or whatever. Because Ty was a guy they knew. He had been a part of that battle. He had earned their respect. Buchner was kind of this outsider, and he hadn't done enough, whether it be through his play or through earning the respect of the locker room, really to be put in the position to be that number 2 guy. But he was familiar with Tommy Rees. I think that was the biggest help for him. But what are your thoughts on Kalen DeBoer potentially naming a starting quarterback coming out of the spring? Nick Saban never would touch that. A lot of times he didn't even like naming a starting quarterback. He wouldn't do it. But I think there are some benefits, like we've talked about, guys not knowing where they stand, exiting the spring. You're still trying to give everybody opportunities, but you're taking reps away from others throughout the summer and into fall camp. But the biggest benefit is if you name Ty Simpson the starter, you build everything around Ty Simpson, and you're building it around a guy who's got some college experience. If you're building it around Keelon and you decide to name him the starter, you're kind of approaching it much differently. You're like, okay, as a first-year player, we can't put him in these certain positions. We don't want to set him up for failure. We're going to be kind of safer with him a little bit. We're going to limit kind of what we do early or whatever. Or if you name Austin Mack, like they all come with their different sets of circumstances. Do you agree with that approach, or would you rather them? Because you also risk, if you have another guy hit the transfer portal in that post-spring window, you've got 2 scholarship quarterbacks in the roster, and that is not a good place to be in. So do you agree with it or do you not?
I mean, if it's so obvious, then I guess so. But I mean, if you named Austin Mack the starting quarterback, Ty Simpson's gone.
Not even close. Yes.
I mean, he's going to hit that transfer portal. So, I mean, you got to do the Nick Saban thing, which was annoying to the players, by the way. Just to let you know, when
there's no doubt
who was damn playing, who was the starter and who wasn't, and then he was like, I don't even care who the starter is, and all that stuff. They hate that.
It's not like he's telling the media and the public one thing and he's telling his team another. They didn't know either. They were completely in the dark.
Yeah, right. Strategery, as they would say on SNL. So I don't know. I mean, you can't name the guy until like the week of the game or something.
Well,
right?
if it's going to be Ty Simpson, I think you go ahead and announce him, because I will say I was actually asked a couple of days ago, put a % chance on Keelon Russell being Alabama's starting quarterback in week 1. Much different saying, does he start at any point this upcoming season compared to does he start that opening game? And the fact that you're going to Tallahassee, a difficult place to play. I understand what Florida State was last year, but I'll continue to reiterate, they've got talent. It can click. I mean, I think quarterback play for them was severely limiting. And just as you're trying to adjust mid-season to making a mistake on that front, it was very difficult. They had a true freshman who came in, and Luke Kromenhoek, who, he's going to come with his limitations as a first-year player. Like just DJU wasn't it. Luke Kromenhoek wasn't ready. They had another guy that they put out there that just wasn't as talented as some of the other guys. Like, it was a bad quarterback situation. I think that led to a lot of bad play. I think guys started to kind of give up. But my response to the question was, I'm at 5%. That number increases drastically if you say by week 5 or by week 7 or at any point next season. It will increase. But for week 1, and I don't want to completely rule it out because he's super talented, but it would show me a lot. It would tell me a lot about Keelon Russell if he was Alabama's starting quarterback going to Tallahassee in what will be one of the bigger helmet games of week 1 of college football as a true freshman. So I think exiting the spring, if it's Ty Simpson, I think you can tell Keelon, like, hey, keep your head down, keep working. Same thing with Austin Mack. Like, this isn't, we're naming him because we need to build it and start preparing for Florida State, but this will continue to be kind of an open competition. You'll still get your opportunities, and we'll see how things go. If you name anybody but Ty Simpson, I don't know that Ty Simpson sticks around. So I think if you exit spring and you plan to name a starter, more than likely, would you agree, would probably be Ty Simpson?
I would think so. I mean, like I if you handicapped it, I would say Ty Simpson. I mean, like I'd say, look, this is the Mick Gillispie handicapping of the quarterback position. 70% chance Ty Simpson, 25% chance Austin Mack, 5% chance Keelon Russell. Now that could change
week 1,
but right now going into camp, that's where I'm at.
And you're talking about week 1 start, not 2025 start.
Yeah, like just week 1. But I mean, like, look, if Austin Mack goes in there and he runs their system the way that they want to run, and like when Ty first came, I thought he was going to beat out Jalen Milroe. I really did. And people were telling me behind the scenes, they're like, look, man, this guy, when Milroe was focused, he was really good. I think he got off of focus towards the end of his time at Alabama. And I think that cost him dearly. You got to be disciplined and you got to be focused. And whatever was going on behind the scenes manifested itself on the field. That's the bottom line. And that's how it works in life.
His feet telling what they were doing.
Right. All of that stuff.
He wasn't being coached to do that. He was actually being coached not to do that. And so that's what you're talking about is things like that leads you to believe something like that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, right. And that's how it goes in life, When he was focused, he was like the shadow of Bryce Young. And he was football 24/7. First guy in the, in the facility and learning all that stuff, something happened along the way. And, I hope he figures it out because you guys know I always liked him and I still do. This year, it's who's going to be that guy? Who's going to be the guy that's going to put the extra work in? Who's going to be the guy that's going to know where to throw the check down and the second check down and the third check down and and know when to run it? Who's going to know, who's going to be the guy who the players
respond to,
gravitate to? Yeah, right. Like who are they going to, they decide, like Saban said, I agree with this. I've been on lots of teams. They'll tell you who the leader is, because you told them with your actions, right? Because they want the same thing you want. They want to win. So a lot of that, there's a lot of variables that I don't know. I mean, I'm not there every day, but just from our perspective right here, who's going to take the bull by the horn? And when you hear Kalen DeBoer talk about Austin Mack, what's he say? He's a hard worker. He's dedicated, and it's not like he comes in the game and I see a whole lot of difference between him and Ty Simpson. We just don't see a whole lot of either one of those guys.
Correct.
So the 8A game is going to be fantastic because we'll get a real good view of what those guys look like with more than just limited snaps and better players on the field. And, and kind of go from there.
That is, and that's exactly what I was going to say. This isn't me just because I'm saying this about Austin Mack doesn't mean that Ty Simpson's not doing the same. And it doesn't mean that Keelon Russell isn't doing the same and won't be doing the same. But one person that we know has that approach as far as the working hard, doing all the little things, doing all the extra things. We have been specifically told that Austin Mack's that kind of dude. So yeah, and I think that's probably outside of just, any familiarity that he has been in Kalen DeBoer's and Ryan Grubb's system, because all these quarterbacks have been in Kalen DeBoer's system, but they haven't been in Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb's system. But and the way that they had to tweak things under Jalen Milroe or with him as the quarterback, I don't know that anybody was really truly in that duo's system this past season. So that is an advantage for Austin Mack, but also we know that the guy works extremely hard. That doesn't mean he's got an advantage on that front because the other guys could be working just as hard, but we at least know that definitively about Austin Mack.
Yeah, it's going to be great. You guys in the comments section, appreciate all of you for being here with us today. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, share. We need the help right now. It's that time of year where Not a whole lot's going on in the world of Bama football. Now, in the world of Bama basketball, Clint, not the kind of game that you wanted Alabama to have. But the SEC's tough. I'm going to say this. It's basketball. It's tough. It's hard to go on the road and win against the top 20 team, top 15 team. Missouri's one of them. But and maybe Bama was tweaking the lineup around yesterday too. I mean, Sears had scored a bunch of points, but defense got to get better, man. They got to play better defense. It looked like last year.
Everybody keeps talking about that drop coverage. Got to be honest with you. Don't know enough about the game of basketball to tell you if it's right, wrong, or but a lot of people have a problem with it, and it's people that I trust. Hunter Johnson, I trust his basketball knowledge. Christian Sykes, he's been on here with us a couple of times. Trust his knowledge. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I think defensively they got to do something. What they're doing is not working, and Missouri's good. Missouri is really, really good, and they're playing extremely well. They might be one of the top 3 teams in the SEC, to be quite honest with you.
Right.
And you're going to their place, and Alabama typically play better.
Well, yeah. Hold on. Now think about that. You got Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee.
I think right now they're better than Alabama. I don't think yesterday was a fluke.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say Florida, Auburn are both ahead of them.
Those last two games have kind of set you back on Bama a little bit, huh?
Yeah, I mean, just because they're still trying to put some things together, and I get it. I mean, Latrell Wrightsell, he was such a massive part of what they did.
Right.
On the defensive end and on the offensive end, as far as creating spacing and all that. So I mean, I understand that's a big loss. Darian Reed, is he going to be available? Isn't he going to be available limited minutes when he is playing? Like all these, they dealt with some issues as far as health and how they make certain things work. They've had to tinker, but it's just, I thought Mark Sears bounced back last night and did some really good things. I think if he keeps playing like that, Alabama will be in pretty good shape, at least from that position. But he's still probably dribbling a little bit too much. The turnovers, I mean, and the slow starts. I don't know what you got to do. You got to switch something up. That cannot happen. I mean, it's just like you watch that happen against Auburn. They get down 9-0, almost a double-digit deficit immediately. And it's like, man, that's less than ideal. And they fought back and clawed and put all their energy towards making that more respectable, or getting back in that game. And just in the end, they ran out of gas, and Auburn was able to keep responding. And then it's like, okay, you see that happen. It's like, we can't go on the road and do that against a very good Missouri team. And then it's not just 9-0, it's 12-0 like that. You can't have that stuff, man. And that's what Kentucky, Coleman Coliseum, I'm sure it being a Saturday, the fact that it's Kentucky, I'm sure Coleman's going to be absolutely rocking. They've been doing a great job, bringing it in these big games. But Alabama, they need to have a get-right game, because it's not – I mean, you got Kentucky, and then I think Mississippi State, and then you got 3 top 6 opponents to close out the year. I mean, it's not going to get – it's going to get tougher, if anything. And I don't think Alabama's going, 0-6 or whatever to finish the year. But if they don't get some stuff figured out, I mean, they could end up only winning, 1 or max 2 more games to close it out. And that's just with where this team was at. You can't have that.
Yeah, right on. Nate Oates with some funny quotes in the press conference, covercrimson.com. Check it out there. We got a thread going about that. Stacy Blackwood on there talking about it. And Clint, you're going to be on there as well. Quarterback talk, coaching talk. Alabama added a coach in football yesterday who was a wide receiver coach in the NFL. And now he's going to be an analyst for Kalen DeBoer. But another one of those guys that coached with Kalen DeBoer and wants to come and do it again.
Yeah, and that is kind of been the theme, right? So Tyler Hughes is who it is, and he is joining as an analyst, but he has been the Patriots wide receivers coach. Having that NFL experience is great. I know that, like, from a recruiting standpoint, those guys, and the more of those guys you got in the building, as far as knowing what those NFL receivers are supposed to look like, that's beneficial from a recruiting standpoint. People respect that. And it's just another offensive mind to be added to that room. And you talk about, Jamarcus Shepard and maybe what's his future. Like, you don't know what will happen with Tyler Hughes. They might be grooming him where if something happens with Shepard, they got a guy who's ready to step up and step in. And I don't know how that'll go, but I mean, the things are pointing up. Now, granted, I do want to have a discussion at some point, maybe prior to spring, might be post spring, but sometimes my optimism gets the best of me. I've always been this way. I can talk myself into a lot of things. I do want to have kind of a reality check with myself, but I want to do it through like video form where we talk about some of the problems that other people are having. What are your concerns? Offensive line, depth here, this position, whatever. And I want to have some real conversations about that where I make sure I'm kind of stepping into more of the, I don't want to call it pessimism or pessimistic approach, but just step into that mindset and say, okay, this is what it could look like. If these people are right, this is why this could potentially be a problem, and just hash all that stuff out too. I want to cover it all. But it's going to be fun. We got a lot of stuff going on at covercrimson.com, and we got a lot going on over here on the YouTube channel. So like Mick said, like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, and also hit that notification bell. Like as we're perfecting the content on here, we got a lot of stuff in the works right now. But if you got that notification bell on, whenever we have something that drops, you'll be one of the first to know. And during these kind of slower times where people aren't searching for the football as much, if you're a football addict like us and you want to talk about it and consume everything that you possibly can, YouTube's not going to do as good of a job feeding you right now because it's not as hot of a topic as it is, at other points in the year. So turn those notification bells on so you know exactly when our stuff's dropping.
Yeah, check out covercrimson.com and sign up right now, $25 off annual subscription. We're talking baseball, we're talking softball, we're talking basketball, and a lot of football over there. So do yourself a favor. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. For Clint Lamb, I'm Mick Gillispie. Again, brought to you by mybookie.ag. Use that promo code NEXTROUND to double your initial deposit, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow at noon. Roll Tide.